Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. I wanted to address the subject of the state of the Baha'i community and how we might begin the process of raising the consciousness and conscience of the Baha'i community. And I am specifically talking about the US, since that is where I live. And I don't know much about Baha'i communities in other places besides what I read. And so, unfortunately, if you are from someplace else in the world, then this would not apply to you. Well, maybe I shouldn't say unfortunately, but for the purposes of this podcast, unfortunately, that this would not apply to you. Um, the idea of growth in the Baha'i community has been a constant subject since the time of the beloved master, Abdul Baha. And he encouraged Baha'is to teach, to teach, to teach, to teach. He also, when he came to the United States, placed a very strong emphasis on anti-racism. Very, very strong. That may be the major message that he taught when he was here in the US, anti-racism. So I think those two things are tied together in some ways. Eliminating racism and teaching the Baha'i faith. To the extent to which we, as a Baha'i community, can eliminate racism or lessen racism, we will be effective in spreading the message of Baha'u'llah. Here is what I learned yesterday. I heard an early convention report, and apparently there was a person there, I don't know who it was, but someone who collects statistics in the Baha'i National Center. And what this person said is that every year for the last few years, there has been a net growth in the Baha'i faith of 500 people. That takes into account the number of people entering the Baha'i faith, the number of people leaving the Baha'i faith, and the number of Baha'is who pass on. So all of those are considered. And the result, we have a growth rate of 500 people per year for the last few years. The comment was apparently made by that individual. At least that puts us ahead of mainstream Protestants who have a negative growth rate every year. And factually, that is true. But let me address that issue as a sociologist. All sociologists are, to one extent or another, statisticians, or should be. We take loads of stat courses, and stat becomes second nature to us, at least when we are in grad school. It has to be, otherwise we won't get through. That is not good. Not good. Trying to say it in a gentle way. It may sound like a positive result. Here's the problem. The overwhelming majority of Baha'is in the United States are of my generation, baby boomers. I am a middle baby boomer. We have old ones, we have middle ones, and we have young ones in the United States. And the US is not alone. That is true in much of the Western world, or the first world as it is sometimes called. So it is not unique to the US. But since I live here, I see it. Now, there are scattered areas, pockets around the United States, which are exceptions, where there are genuine places of young people or middle-aged people that are becoming Baha'is. So there are exceptions, and that is a good thing. But considering that the vast majority of us are getting old and getting old quickly, why? Because the last major time when there was a significant period of growth in the American Baha'i community was the late 1960s and early 1970s. I know I entered the Baha'i faith in 1970 when I was 14 years old as a junior youth. I actually had to get written permission from my parents to do so. And after some persuading on my part, they gave it to me. And for a while, I thought that my parents might actually become Baha'is. Turned out that that never happened, but at least my parents had a positive view of the Baha'i faith after an initial period of perhaps understandable suspicion. Now, here we are, those same youth, and in my case, junior youth, that became Baha'is in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And we are now, pardon the word, senior citizens. We are elderly. We are getting up there. We are in our winter years. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Baha'u'llah said, I have made death a messenger of joy unto thee, wherefore doth thou grieve? And I feel very strongly that when I hear that should be me, that I should be one of those people, because I look forward to being in the world to come. I'm not saying I'm suicidal, I'm not, but I do look forward to being in the next world and to being reunited with my friends, with my family, and making new friends, I hope, in the world to come as well. But in terms of the American Baha'i community itself, what that means is that although we are growing apparently at a rate of 500 Baha'is a year, will that last? As a sociologist, I can tell you that unless there is a change to disrupt the current trend, no, it will not last. The Baha'i community will begin shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to the point where maybe in 20 years, we will have assemblies in 3 of the major cities in the US, a scattering of groups in other cities, and isolated believers in the rest of the United States. That is where we are headed, to my understanding, from my reading of the data. Now, I would like to actually see that data so that I could conduct what we call a multiple regression on that data. That means taking that data and making projections into the future. But I don't have the data, and I doubt I will be able to get it. That kind of data is generally not made available to people in any religion, not just in the Baha'i faith. That data is generally kept confidential. So I doubt I will get it. But do I need it? No. Because on face validity, meaning on the face of it, simply by looking at what that guy said, we are headed down to that path. We are rapidly becoming extinct. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but I believe that is true. The vast majority of Baha'is in the US are my generation, and we are dying out. There are some younger Baha'is, there are some Baha'i children, but not that many. Certainly not where I live in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and in most parts of the country, that is the case as well. So I am not alone, and the Rio Grande Valley of Texas is not alone either. And so what will happen really is an extinction level event of the Baha'i faith in the US. And I am sorry for being so blunt. I am not talking about an extinction level event for the faith of Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah has promised us that in some way his faith will be successful. Talks about even if I have to raise up my voice from the midmost heart of the oceans. Yes, so Baha'u'llah will be successful. The Baha'i faith will become the world religion at some point. The question is, will Americans, for now anyway, be a part of it? And the way it looks now, it would appear that that is not the case. So, what has been happening? Well, periodically, various institutions will introduce various programs. For example, meaningful conversations. I was a part of that briefly, well, about a year, and it's a very good program, and we managed to attract some people to the Baha'i faith. But did we see massive conversion, which is what we need? We need mass conversion, not entry by troops. A troop is one person who is a fighter, one person who is a soldier. That is a troop. It's one individual. Entry by troops was a long time ago. We need mass conversion in order to sustain ourselves into the future. And we do not have mass conversion right now. And so it would appear to me, again, I'm only speaking for myself. If you disagree with me, respond to this video and contradict me or give me additional information. Maybe I am missing something. I fully admit that. But it would appear to me that the American Baha'i community is rapidly shrinking, not slowly, but rapidly. Every year, the rate will go up and up. It's not arithmetic. It goes in higher percentages every year because baby boomers are not getting any younger. And as the years go on, every year, a higher proportion of us will die, most likely, than the year before. How long do I have to live? I don't know. My father died when he was 89. When he died, he had severe dementia. I am 68. So conceivably, I might last for another 20 years. Conceivably. Maybe not. I honestly hope I do not live as long as my father, just as I wished my father would not have lived as long as he did. And my sister agrees with me because I saw the torment that my father was under when he experienced dementia. He knew that he had dementia. And he was literally out of his mind. Even those of us in my generation who do not die right away will increasingly be incapable of driving. That happens to my father as well. As the years go on, your quality of vision deteriorates to an extent, and so we will end up having more homebound Baha'is. Fortunately, we have Zoom. So that is a possible way of getting around it by having more meetings on Zoom. And I hope that we pursue that. But young people, which is what we need in the Baha'i faith right now, generally like being with other people. Zoom is fine, but they want to go to parties. They want to go to celebrations, not just go to Zoom meetings. So that would be less attractive to them than even now. I think of myself. I became a Baha'i as a result of a book that I found in Macy's, written by Jessica Russell Gaver. It was not a very good book. I told that story to the late Continental Counselor Hidayatullah Ahmadiyeh, and he said to me, that is the first good thing I have ever heard to come out of Jessica's book. Those were his words. And I can understand that. There were a lot of factual errors. But if you don't know anything about the Baha'i faith, do those factual errors really matter? No, not really. I mean, there may have been some problems with it. I haven't looked at the book in a while. It's on my shelf to my right. But, so what? So what? The main thing, if the spirit of the Baha'i faith is in the book, then it might draw people into the Baha'i faith. But in Jessica's case, and I met her because we're both from the New York City area, she soon left the Baha'i faith and became a Pentecostal. And so I don't know whether that had any impact on the book itself, but clearly that was not the best book available. Nonetheless, I became a Baha'i through it. Recently, the House of Justice has emphasized the importance of meditating on the Master, Abdu'l-Baha. It is very important. He is our exemplar for teaching and for anti-racism. He basically showed us the way. If we meditate on him, meditate on his life, meditate on the stories that people tell of his life, like stories of the late Stanwood Cobb and stories of my friend, my dear friend, the late Rahim Macomb, who met Abdu'l-Baha approximately 20 times. Then we can have something to go on, something that is inspirational, that can draw us closer to Baha'u'llah and consequently closer to the Baha'i faith. But again, we have a problem. Have those things worked? Well, Meaningful Conversations so far has had only a minimal effect. There has been a dribble of people entering the faith through Meaningful Conversations, to my knowledge. The idea of meditating on Abdu'l-Baha coming from the Universal House of Justice, it would be nice. I hope a lot of people are doing it. But when I look around at the current state of the American Baha'i community, I am somewhat skeptical. Maybe I have no right to be skeptical, but that is how I feel in my heart, because my heart is very attached to Baha'u'llah, to Abdu'l-Baha, to Shoghi Effendi, to the Universal House of Justice. And I want to see the American Baha'i community be a part of the success of the Baha'i faith. And right now, it does not look like it. So, what we need to do is to make changes. I have no idea what those changes would be. It would need to be decided through consultation. Obviously, the changes that have been made, like meaningful conversations, were decided through consultation, but new things need to be tried as well. And somehow we need to reach out and draw in primarily young people. The first fireside, Baha'i fireside I attended, where I entered the Baha'i faith, was a youth fireside. All of us in the basement were young people. These days, if I attended a Baha'i meeting, say a Ruhi class, who would I see where I live? I would see people of my generation. I would not see anyone who is young, because here where I live, there is virtually no one who is young. There are some, but not that many. So, this is my further suggestion. The late Brazilian educator, Paulo Freire, was a Roman Catholic, a very devout Roman Catholic. And he coined the term conscientization. The first part of that word is from the French word conscience, which is spelled exactly like the English word conscience. But in French, conscience can mean either conscience or consciousness. There is no French cognate for the English word consciousness. And so he said that basically we need to raise the consciousness, to raise the conscience, the moral compass of those around us, to make people care about each other, especially about the meek. And Jesus said, the meek shall inherit the earth. To make people concerned and willing to step outside the box. So I think that is what we need to do. We need to step outside the box, to be willing to try new things, because we don't have much time. As it is, when I look at the current picture of the Baha'i communities here in the Rio Grande Valley, and I imagine myself as if I were still a youth and I would go into a meeting here, would I want to come back? I don't know what the answer to that is. In my case, maybe yes, but that is because I am an autistic, I had no friends, and I was looking for friends. I did not care how old they were, but most people are not autistics. And so I am skeptical over how many people would want to come back to a Baha'i meeting when they see that the vast majority of people there are baby boomers. So again, that is what I would say. I have no solutions. So if you were looking for solutions, you came to the wrong place. I don't know what the answer is, but somehow we need to think about this and consult on it, because indeed, the times for the American Baha'i community are truly desperate. There have been periods where the various administrative institutions have spoken about the need for growth and how we need to fill the goals of a plan. that was never as important as it is right now. Practicing the goals of the plan, whether it's the institute process, whether it's cluster meetings, whether it's face-to-face teaching, whether it's some revised form of mass teaching, I have no idea. But there is something I think that we need to do that at least currently we are not doing. For the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.